Good morning. Good morning. I am Debbie Scarborough with an insurance chat with Debbie. I am been in the insurance industry now for almost 23 years. So I've seen a lot, tried to run from a lot, but um, I've kind of come to the conclusion that they all have their own story and it gets confusing. So my mission is just to give information. Um, I do sell insurance. So obviously that's how I make a living and pay some bills. But I also have a mission of just helping all of us guide those fun obstacles of insurance, from anywhere to medical insurance to life insurance, long term care, home and auto insurance, because it seems like they all have their own language, but a lot of their language means the same thing. So, when are they important? Because insurance doesn't matter until it does. So, I'm so glad you're joining me this morning. I know it's early, but I have a special guest. Um, he is a new person I've met, but I've known his lovely wife since she was a little girl and known her mom. And it's been nice reconnecting with her and getting to know the girls as adults. So I want to introduce you to my new friend, Christopher Swainsburg from Jacksonville, Florida.
Hello.
How are you this morning?
Dealing with a hyper puppy. I don't know if you've been able to see, this boy just wants to keep playing fetch.
Yes, he is a big puppy and just they don't understand when it's time for dad to work. Well, mine is 16 years old, so she is napping under my feet. She is a dachshund.
I just want him to be 2 so he can be that way, because at 1 he's still hyper.
Yes.
Sweet, but hyper.
Yes. Good luck with that. Yes. So I know you live in Jacksonville and you are married to the beautiful Angeline. And I think y'all just celebrated a year, 2 years. Wow.
We got married in 2020 during COVID.
That's right. Yep. I was scrolling through Facebook when someone shared some of the pictures and I just love it. Love it, love it, love it.
It's one of those, if you recall, her sister got married just before COVID started. COVID started right at their honeymoon start, so they didn't do a honeymoon. And we got married.
Right after.
Sir, there's no squeaking. I'm on a video call. Thank you.
Say, they don't care. So, yes, I couldn't remember. I was trying to look back to see, was it y'all got married first or was it Jasmine got married first?
We were originally going to get married on Halloween the year before in 2019. And I looked at a calendar randomly and was like, if we wait 1 year, Halloween falls on a Saturday night.
Ah.
Which makes it better for family to visit, because she has so much family. If y'all know Angie B, she got family up in Detroit. Her dad got family in Louisiana and Alabama that wanted to show up. I had family that come from Louisiana and Massachusetts. Yeah. So we had people coming from all over the country for our wedding. A Saturday night was better than I think it was going to be a Sunday night if we had done it the year before. So.
Yep. Very good. Well, other than your beautiful wife and that you were in the Army, that's all I know. So tell me tell me what else is behind the scenes of Chris or Christopher.
Swan.
Swan. Okay. Very good.
It's one of those, if somebody calls me Chris, I'm either in trouble or they're a relative that doesn't respect the fact that I don't answer to those names anymore. I'm just Swan.
Okay.
So sports through high school, 6 years in the Army. The whole time, everything's last name based. Nobody wanted to say Swansburg, so it was just Swan. So I've just gotten used to being that. I've got an uncle and a brother that were Coast Guard and Navy. They're Swanee. I was like, you keep the NY. That's a little too girly for me. It fits for you water dwellers. But us real men in the Army don't need that NY. But so I'm 34 as of a month ago. Like we said, married to Angelin for 2 years now. I have a 1-year-old puppy, of which he's going to be a topic of question when I discuss like homeowners insurance with you.
Yes.
Because of his breed. The additional got my bachelor's in business management. Did a year and a half in Afghanistan, stationed in Germany for a while. Got my bachelor's after I got out the Army. I've done everything from mechanical to electrical to being a driver currently to just receiving a job offer to go back to the mechanic side, but specifically on diesel trucks. So I'm looking at that opportunity. My wife's a senior store manager where she runs 2 stores in her field specifically. So she oversees a bunch of employees in 2 different locations. That's pretty much me in the gist. I'm originally from the Boston area, moved to Florida. When Kmart started closing down, my mom lost her job. So we moved down here and I've been stuck here since.
Well, Jacksonville's not a bad place to be stuck.
We moved here 5 years ago. Because like we know, Angie B lives in Daytona. Angelin was in Daytona. I was in Central Florida as well. But she is the oldest of 7 and wanted to be with her siblings. Since her mom came up to Jacksonville regularly anyways, we were just going to move up here and be part of that visit. So
there you go.
I moved her up here.
Very good. Well, I am married to a Navy man. He did 20 years in the Navy. And when we got married, he was stationed at NAS Jacksonville. So
3 miles away.
Yes, I loved Jacksonville. And then we moved to St. Mary's, Georgia. And St. Mary's is still so close, just over the Florida line, that I probably spent every weekend going back to Orange Park in Jacksonville area because I knew everything and I just loved the area. And St. Mary's is a little smaller town. So, so it was nice. And I used to tell everybody we're moving back to Jacksonville.
When?
After moving around like we did and then having children, it was like, nope, Tifton, Georgia. That's where my parents were, his parents, my sisters. So, I mean, sometimes a job puts you in a place, and sometimes it's because that's where family is. And now my husband always said we were retiring and moving back to Tifton. So
he got you.
Exactly. But I'll be honest, now I find myself old and don't want to deal with the big city. And when I've come down to visit Angie to Daytona, I mean, I love it. And I go through Jacksonville and I stop and love it. But it's like, okay, bye-bye.
It's one of those, being originally from the Boston area, I don't feel like, even though Jacksonville is the largest city in the country, it doesn't feel like a big city. When you're from Boston, you're used to Boston, New York, Orlando, Miami. Or even when you go international, some of those cities in Europe are just nonstop, where they compete with those cities that I've listed off on that big city feel that I've always preferred. My wife prefers calm country. So Jacksonville was like the in between, because there's like a 4-block radius in downtown that is kind of big city. But the rest of it's more rural, it feels like. So it's nice. It's got all of those communities around it. So very good. Well, you'll probably start hearing a 3-year-old come in. I forgot to shut the door, but they'll probably scoot on by. So hopefully Carson, no worries. You know what? Carson won't interrupt. But I know as a veteran, you've got some things taken care of with insurance and then some things not taken care of with insurance. And as a young married couple, there are things with insurance that y'all probably need to take care of and have questions. So shoot me off a question. All right. So as we know, I'm a veteran. I fall under the VA. The VA paid for my school. The VA paid for the house through, GI Bill and then the VA home loan. So all that was covered. The good thing with the VA home loan is I didn't need to get mortgage insurance because they cover that for you. The questions I have, when it comes to health insurance, because I am covered by the VA, VA health insurance is not the best. As we know, the VA healthcare is not the best. They're trying, but there's just too many of us and not enough staff, and they don't have the budget to properly take care of us. So we're able to go to see private providers here and there, but it has to be pre-authorized. And in the event of emergency, like me catching the flu, I have to come out of pocket if I go to the care spot, or I have to drive all the way to Gainesville to their 24-hour VA hospital. So I'm trying to figure out what health insurance options are out there that don't overdo it, but at least cover the basis that I require for those not medical life-threatening emergencies, but still require care. If you understand what I'm asking.
Yes. And, we used to have what you call just kind of like a hospital plan, just for major things. And now with a lot of changes, good or bad, depending on how you look at them, Affordable Care Act moved in. It changed the face of insurance a little bit. Some things in a good way, some things in a negative way, just depending on how you look at it. It is very important as a veteran because the good and the bad with being a veteran, and what that insurance provides is it provides an insurance at a price for you. Waiting.
And it's one of those
travel far.
The one thing is, say it was a life-threatening emergency, the VA covers that 100%.
Yeah.
If I go to the ER and end up hospitalized, it's 100% covered.
Okay.
But it's those minor, like I got the flu, I broke a bone. If I break a leg, that's going to come out of my pocket if I go to a hospital here rather than driving hour and a half, 2 hours to Gainesville for the VA to care for it. So that's where the question is.
There's not a lot of just basic insurance policies anymore. They're all inclusive. Now, there are, in Georgia, there are some what they call Care Connect, those clinics that take you in and out. There's a lot of them popping up.
Like we've got the care spots and urgent cares here through the hospitals. Care spots are run by, I've seen them partnered up with CVS. And then in Jacksonville, we have the Ascension St. Vincent Hospital with their little pop-up urgent cares. So those are all over. And those are the things that I would end up utilizing if it's not life-threatening. And that's where the VA will cover, I believe, with Ascension St. Vincent specifically, they cover 70%. So I still come out of pocket 30% unless I have an additional insurance coverage.
And, my first thing is to say, you get on a plan. The best thing is finding a job that offers medical benefits, or two, if Angeline has medical benefits, being on her policy is the best option. But some of those clinics, and unfortunately it causes you to do the research. Some of those clinics will base your appointment with your income. So, they're not requiring the whole visit, $200 or $300. Plus, they also offer little benefits, meaning if you pay $25 a month, you can come see them anytime for those non-emergency things that happen. But they're fewer and far between sometimes, but being on your wife's policy or this new job, signing up for their benefits is by far the best thing to do.
Now so we were looking, because we just went through open enrollment with my wife's policies, and I have gotten on all of her policies except for health insurance for one major reason. For her to cover herself health insurance through her job it was roughly $100. Sorry, he wants to play tug of war.
Yep.
To add me is an additional $300 every 2 weeks.
Wow.
That's $600 additional a month.
Yeah. That's hard to justify that, especially for you, for knowing that you're covered for emergencies. It's just that before.
Exactly. And so the good thing is, since we discussed with Angie B and we got a hold of you for the questions about insurance, I did end up retaining a new job offer, which is going to come with insurance within 3 weeks. But it's still questions that I have because I'm not the only one. There are other people out there, so I'm trying to help who I can through my questions.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because, you know, the first thing I tell people, especially when I'm calling on new people, you know, they showed a little interest in insurance. They want to talk. And they said, well, I'm not really interested in anything right now. And I said, that's great. I said, I just want to come share with you what the benefits are. And then you may know someone, or I may be able to share something that you can pass on to someone else. So, you know, my first advice to you or friends in that situation is to doing a little research with your area and finding those clinics that are based on your pay, or that you can join and do those memberships. Of course, you know, ideally it would be finding a job that provides medical insurance, but we know those are not happening as frequently as they used to, because some of smaller companies will pay you a little more if you go through Affordable Care Act. And Affordable Care Act right now, open enrollment is beginning with that. And I would encourage that, because that is also based on your income.
And that's the one thing I was looking at, was rather than jumping on my wife's insurance, if I didn't do anything else, it was going to be probably getting my own individual plan through the CARE Act, you know, through Obamacare, as they're calling it, or whatever it's actually called. Just because whatever they're going to charge me is probably cheaper than $600 a month to add me.
Right.
Which would have brought her total up to $800 a month.
Yeah, because it's also going to be based on your income. Now, I'll be honest, you can go to Medicare.gov website, not Medicare, you're not Medicare, the Affordable Care Act.
I'm not old enough.
Not there yet. I'm not there yet. So, enroll in Affordable Care Act by yourself, but I would encourage you to find an insurance agent. And if you need help finding someone, I have a couple websites that I can look to find someone. I'd encourage you to talk to someone live, because your health insurance through Affordable Care Act is based on your income, and it is verified by your taxes. So if you're applying 2023, it's based on 2021 taxes, and your premium is going to adjust when you file your 22 taxes. So it is something that is verified within months. So if you don't, you know, I don't want to say we answer a question incorrectly on purpose, but we do it accidentally occasionally because we don't know. So I would encourage you to reach out to a licensed insurance agent that can walk you through and signing you up, because other things to consider when you do Affordable Care Act is you want to put in doctors where you go. And the website is up there. I was having a brain interruption. So healthcare.gov, and open enrollment is here by December 15th for coverage to be January 1st is where that's at. But there's also people in Georgia. I know a lady in Americus that'll walk you through Affordable Care Act. But of course, since you're in Florida, you have to get someone licensed in Florida. But I can find someone, because it's so important to talk to someone who knows, because you also need to take into consideration if you prefer a hospital in your area, or if you already have a primary care physician that you want to use. You want to make sure they're in network and covered. I have two friends right here in Tifton. Our hospital here in Tifton the only insurance they could get through Affordable Care Act, they have to go out of town. Now, it's not that far out of town, but it is 45 minutes away. But in an emergency situation, it is away. So I know there was an earlier question about an ambulance bill for veterans. And, I don't know the answer to that question in an emergency situation if veterans cover that. But the good news with our MASA plan, you don't have to worry about where it's covered.
Excuse you, sir.
Dallas,
excuse you.
He agrees.
Okay. So another question I have is going to be pertaining to homeowners insurance. Mm-hmm. We know how sweet and beautiful my big boy is.
Yes.
As a veteran, we went through a specific homeowners insurance that only covers veterans.
Right.
But his breed, just because of his breed,
yep,
is an automatic disqualification of all policy.
So that's not.
Is that common?
It is, and it's not. It is, and I would encourage finding an independent agent, and I can help with that in Jacksonville. Okay. The good news about an independent agent is they're dealing with 6, 10, 15 different insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And you're right. There are some that they're going to ask, what kind of, you have pets? Yes, I have a dog. What breed? And then they're going to do that same thing. And
it's one of those, I've gone through the loophole process of when we first got them, paid all that money for training and all of that. I'm a veteran. So where training and veteran status go into play. So he's registered as a service dog, an emotional support animal with my PTSD. And so he doesn't necessarily give me an issue. Like I can't lose my policy because he's registered, but right. Other people in the area, so he's a cane corso. It's a breed that's becoming very popular in the U.S. It's a mastiff, but it's also a bully breed / guard breed. Okay. Jacksonville has a city ordinance where they require my dog to be muzzled at any point he is off city public property. The second he touches public land, sidewalk, I leave my property, he must be muzzled per city ordinance because of his breed.
Wow.
They have a badder rap than pits, shepherds, Rottweilers, things like that, just because of his breed and nothing to do with the dog individually. I do know, since I've bought a cane corso and brought this puppy, as we're going to call him, into my life, there are a lot more owners in the Jacksonville area and Florida and even into Georgia. But they're also running into the same issues of finding homeowners insurance to cover them with that breed.
Yeah. And I know that because I did homeowners insurance for a lot of years, there are several insurance companies out there who they will have some additional questions for you to answer, which usually is has your dog ever bit anybody? No. Okay, good. And just like you've provided that you had him trained, you've done extra things. He's not just left outside in a fenced yard by himself, because that's the other thing with the homeowner's policy. Even if we can have a fenced in yard that our animal can't get out of, but if someone gets in it, we can still be held liable for what our dog does, even if someone breaks into our property.
Now, I've heard that by posting the danger, beware of dog signs, that prevents you from that liability of being sued. So you break in my house, and he does. I mean, granted, my dog's not going to bite. He's probably going to run up you barking, trying to lick you to death. But you're not going to think that when he's 120 pounds running at you full speed as a puppy. You just have to worry about the veteran and his wife in the house. I mean, It's Florida.
Well, and that's a thing that is covered state by state, depending on where you live in. There are some states who say you can put up 100 signs and pictures and it doesn't matter. You're responsible for your dog. It's even like a parking lot. I mean, an owner can put up a parking lot and say he's not responsible for broken windows or but if somebody can find that you were liable in some way, they'll find those deep pockets. So
yeah.
just looks so vicious.
Go lay down. Go to bed.
So, but it's very important to do the homework and make the phone calls to talk to different insurance agents to find out where they can and what they can do. And I'm like you, I want to take advantage of all the veteran benefits that I can. I never got asked that question. But we had Cocker Spaniels and Gold Retrievers. But I know on a homeowner's policy, usually the pit bulls, sometimes German Shepherds, not always. Those are those ones, Rottweilers, that are on those lists with insurance companies. And even a Chihuahua, sometimes insurance companies will go a little further and say, do you have a dog? What breed? And have they bit somebody? Well, my Chihuahua probably bit several people, but he was 6 pounds, 8 pounds. He couldn't do any damage. Really.
Mine's a puppy, but doesn't realize that he has a stronger bite than a lion. So, if he were to, does he like having your hand in his mouth? Absolutely. If he ever decided to chop down, it would hurt.
Yes.
But he's been trained not to, so we're good.
There you go. So it's good to look elsewhere and try to, because you really don't want to be without that liability insurance. And I know sometimes some people will say, well, does it take care of damage that the dog does to the house? And that's not necessarily true. It's just covering the liability if someone comes into your home or when you have him away from the house. Your liability follows you wherever you go, to the park, to the vet, wherever you go. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Okay.
We'll be back in just a moment. Thanks, Atlas.
Greetings, I'm Larita, host of So What's the Problem TV show. It airs Thursdays at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live. I conduct interviews and I spread awareness. If you follow my page, you'll get the notifications and you will never miss an episode. A cheerful heart is good medicine and laughter is good for the soul. Thanks for watching.
When it seemed like the world had stopped, as if our normal would never be again. Confinement Chronicles.
Still, there were those who held fast to hope. These are their stories. From teachers to dads to nurses on the front line, they have chronicled their messages of hope. Confinement Chronicles, now available. Order today on Amazon, also available in audiobook or at laderopress.com.
Confinement Chronicles.
Thanks so much for watching an Insurance Chat with Debbie. Debbie's special guest today is Swan, author of My Mental Health During This Pandemic in the Confinement Chronicles audiobook. We'll hear more from Swan in just a moment. But first, we wanted to introduce you to something special. Mental Health Through the Pandemic by Christopher Swan Swansberg. Through the outbreak of COVID-19, we as a nation have had struggles. Our government ignores the experts. Our jobs are looking for loopholes to stay open as essential jobs. Our work hours are reduced. Millions become unemployed. Toilet paper is sold out across the country. Audiobook produced by Angie B. Productions.
We are back with our special series about the cost of cancer, which touches just about everyone. Drug prices driving patients and their families into bankruptcy, including one woman you're about to meet, forced to move out of her home just to pay for the medicine she needs to keep her alive. NBC's Ann Thompson shares her story.
I win.
Lauren Bauman's laugh masks a growing anger about the price of her life.
Without this pill, we die. Our families are left because we couldn't afford a pill.
The pill Gleevec helps manage her chronic myeloid leukemia, a daily dose that keeps this single mom of 9-year-old Aubrey alive. Even after her insurance kicks in, Lauren's monthly copay can run as high as $2,200, twice the average mortgage payment. It's helped drive Lauren into bankruptcy, though she has a full-time job. Now she's packing up her condo and moving back in with her mom.
On days I feel like I can't go on anymore, all I have to do is look at her, and she's my reason.
Gleevec is a nearly $5 billion a year drug for Novartis, the price more than tripling since Gleevec's 2001 debut, from $2,600 a month to $9,200 today, even though the drug has not changed.
That's not inflation. Right? And that's happened as they've recouped their investment in the drug many, many times over.
Memorial Sloan Kettering's Dr. Peter Bach says the U.S. cancer drug market is completely broken.
What is it that drives the price of a cancer drug then?
Essentially, companies set the price as high as they think they can get away with. And they say it's the cost of research or something like that, but there's no evidence of that.
In the last 5 years, there have been at least 15 new cancer drugs that cost more than $10,000 a month. But unlike Gleevec, these drugs may only extend life by an average of months, not years. Bach says drug prices should be tied to performance.
The prices have nothing to do with value, so they're hard to explain. They're hard to justify.
How many programs have you been on?
Almost every month for 4 years, Lauren's begged her church, charities, even Novartis to help her pay for Gleevec.
I send a picture of her so they can see it's not just me, it's her.
Last month, Novartis agreed to help. Lauren will pay just $10 a month, but she will need to reapply every year for the rest of her life. In a statement, Novartis says profits pay for research, which has led to the approval of Gleevec for 5 more rare cancers. The majority of patients, it says, pay less than $100 out of pocket per month. And it offers an extensive assistance program for those who can't afford the medicines like Lauren.
To me, that's you playing God. You're getting to pick and choose who's living and who's dying, all because of a buck.
The high cost of life that for Lauren and so many others is priceless. Ann Thompson, NBC News, Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching an Insurance Chat with Debbie. We'll be right back in just a moment with her special guest, author Swan. The tour that Angie B presents is coming to Southfield, Michigan. Join us Saturday, December 3rd, 2022 for networking. Come out and meet the authors from Confinement Chronicles. Free gifts for all attendees. And special holiday shopping. For more information, give us a call at 248-702-5559. That's 248-702-5559. Now, if you can't make it to Southfield, Michigan, and you'd like to introduce your book or your business in our virtual souvenir directory, The information is right here on the screen. Ad rates are 50, 30, and 20. Just send an email to volusiabusinesswomen@gmail.com. They'll get you all the information that you need. This episode is sponsored in part by Volusia Business Women. Search for us on YouTube and you'll catch the replay of today's episode. Volusia Business Women, we are stronger together. Now, as promised, it's time to get back to our host, Debbie Scarborough, and her special guest, Swan.
Thanks, everyone, for coming back. We've got our special guest, Swan, and his little companion, Atlas. So I want to talk about the book that you were in and how you decided to do that.
So, Angie B is my mother-in-law. I made the mistake of marrying her oldest daughter. Things happen.
Yes.
So she's real big on all of us trying to participate, not just because it helps her, but also because it helps us expand on our own and branch out and, help us become entrepreneurs on our own, create our own business. So she gave me a bunch of the articles on, the topics that they were going to be writing about, and none of the topics in the first couple volumes sparked my interest. Then came my mental health, and I was like, that one I can relate to. There's another volume out there that I put a draft in to see if I get on that one. Don't know if it's coming out, when it's coming out, or what's going on. But so I've done my part to participate, especially on the topics that I can relate to. Mental health has always been a thing I struggled with since coming back from Afghanistan. But as we know, like I was saying earlier with the VA, care is not that great. You see your psychologist once every 5 months.
Wow.
So I've learned to manage it on my own. Now I'm in Jacksonville where they actually are able to see me on a more frequent basis. And I'm like, I've managed it for, 11 years now. Unless it gets worse, I'm good. I've learned to control it. I've learned to manage it. But so I did partake in the my mental health in the pandemic, just seeing what I saw, seeing all of my friends that are struggling mentally, and those that aren't, those that were thriving because of the social distancing. They're introverts, and they enjoy and thrive in this environment where you can't be near people.
Yes. And you volunteer with a group, and y'all
the Bearded Villains.
Yes.
Yes. So I am a member of the Bearded Villains Jacksonville chapter. We are called the First Coast Villains. The Bearded Villains are an international beard club. We specialize in, of course, being a beard club, but our main 3 topics of focus are family, brotherhood, and charity. Whenever we do an event like our annual parties, or we have our East Coast meet, West Coast meet, World meet, or Florida summits, any of those meetings that we do where a bunch of us get together, we're always raising money. In August, I went to Chicago for our World meet, and we raised money for a group for autism.
Awesome.
Last month in October, the weekend after my birthday, they had the Florida Summit here in Orlando, or down in Orlando. I went and attended that. We raised money for I Got Your Six, which is another nonprofit organization that specializes with veterans specifically. We've also volunteered with the Beauty Bazaar for Angie B's Beauty Bazaar, trying to help raise funds for alopecia foundation that she partners with. And we didn't do really a whole lot money wise. We ran silent auction, we ran the 50-50 raffle, we had a booth for ourselves, but mainly what we did is we just showed up and we're the manpower.
Yes.
Ask what any of the models or ask you needed something moved. We were there to move it.
Yep. That was so nice because, normally when I go speak at meetings and go, especially because the clientele that I normally deal with, I'm the youngest there. So I wouldn't dare ask one of my seniors to
And here
help
we are
bring
showing
it
up with
back.
20, 30-year-olds that are like, how can we help? And I'm like, there you go.
There you go. So it was a nice change of pace to see y'all there and helping. And I know everyone enjoyed y'all helping out. So, and I'm so glad to kind of get to know a little more. My husband's a veteran. My oldest did 5 years in the Navy, but, very fortunate to not have any of the struggles. So how do you think Atlas
He wanted my attention and ran away.
how do you think more of us, especially with Veterans Day, depending on when this airs, I think in 2 weeks.
Also, remember, Memorial Day is for the dead. Veterans Day is for the living.
Exactly.
A certain individual likes to mix it up and thank me on both days. And on Memorial Day, I got to remind them I'm alive. It's not my day yet. My day's in November.
Yes.
The only day that veterans like me remember that we get veteran discounts year round at a lot of places. We forget about those all the time. But we remember it because we also get all that free food.
Yes.
That's part about that day.
That is, yes. And, I guess some of us take it for granted because I didn't grow up military. My husband did. His dad was Army. His dad did 24 years. And then both his sons did Navy. So, we take it for granted that we know the difference between Memorial and Veterans Day, but most people don't. And it's a good way to know it. Memorial is always about honoring those who passed.
The memory.
Yes.
Now I will say the confusing thing is internationally, especially in Europe, Veterans Day for us is Remembrance Day for them to remember all of the veterans that they had lost during World War I. So their Remembrance Day falls on our Veterans Day.
Okay.
And I don't think they have anything for veterans that are alive. I think that's just they're in more of a culture where they honor you every day.
Right. Yeah. So how do you think, if you're talking to someone who's not involved, how can they help a veteran that struggles with mental illness?
The main thing is it depends on the relationship you have with them. If you're close, always be available to talk. Always be like, hey, if you ever need to talk, give me a call. Don't ask prying questions like, how was your deployment? What did you see when you were overseas? Don't ask about it. A lot of veterans don't want to discuss what we did or what we went through.
Right.
Because there are some guys deploy overseas to be a mailman or fuel tech, where you run the fuel yard on base, so you only deal with the fuel to ensure that the vehicles have fuel to go out on their missions. But they still have Kandahar. We had mortar attacks 24/7, constantly having rockets falling out of the sky. So you went there with the expectation of doing one thing, and then you see something that you're not supposed to based on that job description, but it is a combat zone, so you're going to see things you don't want to see that could scar you and damage you. So it's just be there. If they need to call you at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, be there. Help them out. Additionally, don't be afraid to tell them, hey, call the Veterans Crisis Line. There's a crisis line specifically for veterans that helps because they have an understanding of what veterans are going through. Additionally, there's this new thing. I've become friends with the owner, or the founder, I should say, and it's I Got Your Six, IGY6. He actually invited me this weekend to go down to Cocoa Beach to do rock climbing. It didn't fit into my schedule, so I wasn't able to attend. He gave me a week notice, but there's 37 veterans currently in Cocoa Beach right now doing rock climbing through his organization. Airbnb and food paid for, the event paid for. Because some veterans, they honestly just want to spend time with other veterans,
Yes.
doing activities that they don't normally do, and that helps center them. Every individual is different. There's millions of veterans. So you can't consider each one of us to have the same process of processing what we've gone through, processing our emotions. When I came home, I didn't feel emotions. Or to put it the way my therapist had told me is, I feel emotion, I just can't identify them.
Yeah.
And my failure to identify those emotions in the moment resulted in it turning into anger. And that's what I knew how to identify. I knew how to identify anger, but I couldn't identify happiness, sadness, grief.
Yeah.
So I waited until it bothered me enough to become anger. And then I was like, oh, I'm angry.
Yeah.
And that was how I processed a lot of things. Just because there's parts of the military that you have to be angry to be able to do the things. You need that adrenaline rush of rage to be able to do what you're being asked to do. And they do such a great job teaching us how to go to war.
Right.
But they don't teach us how to come home.
And that's where we have to do better as a community and take care of our veterans.
They spend 9 weeks breaking us mentally to reform us into these soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, but they don't do the same process to break us from that and turn us back into civilians.
Yeah.
So like I said, just be there for them. Don't be afraid to be like, hey, I kind of feel like where you're going isn't healthy. You might want to try calling the crisis line, or call family. Do you have any friends that were served with that you could talk to? And veterans, honestly, if another veteran calls you, don't act like we're still in the military where you're like, suck it up, push on. Acknowledge their hurt and where they're coming from, and understand that they might not process it the same way as you are. So be there for them, because we don't need them being a part of the 22.
Yeah.
The 22 being, I believe it's 22 veterans. It's either an hour or a day commit suicide.
Yeah.
So I just know that I don't want any of my friends that I've been with, my brothers, my sisters, being a part of that 22, regardless of what the time frame is that 22 falls under. I don't want them to be a part of it. I don't want them to be a statistic. I'm always there for them. So they can look into the I Got Your Six with IGY6. There's a nonprofit that recently has started with that. It's something we've always known. It's an acronym we've always utilized, but now there's an actually nonprofit specifically for veterans.
That's good to hear.
That help that. You have the veteran crisis line that you can always call. And then even as civilians, we have, 988? The mental health hotline that we can call now.
Yes.
988, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Never be afraid to reach out for help. It's not a badge of shame. If anything, it shows that you're stronger because you're willing to ask for help.
Exactly. It's okay to ask for help. Well, I appreciate your service, Chris, and I know we just got a question about life insurance still payable if I commit suicide, and unfortunately that question
most policies
is yes or no. Well,
most policies, if it's self-inflicted, especially that I've seen, and anything that has ever been presented to me, if it's a self-inflicted injury, be it via gunshot, hanging, or anything like that, or even you intentionally drive yourself off a bridge in a vehicle, you intentionally do something with the vehicle that you knew would cause you bodily harm that would result in death, they're not paying out. And
that's usually the case the first 2 years. After that, the suicide clause does go away. So I don't say that to say wait 2 years, but
no.
But it is something that has come up a lot in most policies. That clause is in there for those first 2 years, and then it goes away. but not to say that there aren't policies out there that are really in there, especially those of us who bought policies through the military, because not those policies don't necessarily follow the same lines as normal insurance policies. I know with what I sell, it's the first 2 years. After that, it will pay. So
And it's one of those, if you're asking if we can get a policy, if we get you covered under a policy without the suicide clause, I would personally recommend that you see a therapist immediately to make sure that you're in a good mental state before we go any further.
Yes. And, you know, but then I think a lot of people are recognizing more mental illness, more so. So
I almost feel like we're spotting more mental illness in places that it doesn't exist. It's becoming so overwhelming that it feels like there's more, like, things that I grew up with. They're like, oh, well, it just wasn't diagnosed back then.
Right. And even COVID, I think, brought out a lot more. Brought out a lot more. Well, I hope Angie B's always got to get something in there, doesn't she? So did we answer all your questions today?
So back to with the homeowners insurance that I had a question of. Do you, because I know you specialize in Georgia,
right?
Can you potentially post the link of homeowners insurances in Florida that are still accepting new policies? Because I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, where a lot of insurance companies are fleeing the state because it's just a money pit in their eyes with hurricane seasons. People were losing their insurance coverage because they didn't have a new roof.
Right.
The age of the roof, even though it was under 20 years, they were like, nope, it's too old. We're just going to drop your policy. So I know there.
State Farm Insurance is always a good place to go, but in Allstate. Of course, the downside to using one that only has one company, you're dealing with them. And that's why I say at least every 2 to 3 years, get quotes on your insurance.
And that's what I'm asking for is if you can identify a list of insurance companies that are available in the state that are currently accepting policies. So people that are viewing might live in Florida, might want to be able to look up and get a quote.
Yeah, there are several. I don't know that there's necessarily a link that I can share, but anyone is welcome to call me, text me, and I can help find that. Usually your independent agencies. I know there's a company called Auto Owners Insurance. They work with independent agents. So they are still in Florida. They are still providing insurance. And I don't want to say that they take everybody, because they take everybody with a price. For instance, I have a pool. I live in the woods with 11 acres and I don't have a fence around it.
How are you my auntie and I ain't been invited to bring that list to just be loose?
Now you know. Now you know. So yes, come anytime. But so auto owners understands that there are exceptions to, and there's reasons. Instead of going across the board, every pool needs to be fenced. Well, nobody comes out here. If you come down our dirt road, you probably are turning around, because so they are more understanding. And I believe they're more understanding with the pet situation too. They're going to accept breeds that other insurance carriers are not, but they're going to go a step further and ask a couple questions. Has your dog ever bitten? And you provide that you've done training and do everything. So that's the good thing about auto owners insurance, and they are a top rated insurance carrier. So, but I will gladly get some information to you with some other insurance companies in the area that are available to look at. Of course, I had insurance for years with USAA.
That's who I have.
They followed. Of course, I never ran across the pet issue with them because Yeah, we had a Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah. No, that's
So-
who we have for auto and home insurance. But the reason I'd asked it is with this past hurricane, my mother lost everything.
Yeah.
She was unaware of the need and the importance of having renter's insurance, which is only like $7 if you add it with your car insurance.
Right. Oh,
And lost everything. And luckily for her, she got extremely lucky that FEMA decided that her area of
Right.
Deltona, because Deltona was not considered a disaster zone.
No, not
However,
in the beginning.
the neighborhood she's in, because of how bad the flooding was, to this day, it's been what, a month and a half, 2 months now.
Yeah.
She still has a foot of water in the cul-de-sac that still has not drained, but it's drained enough from the house that they've already ripped the walls out, gutted the house. My mom lost everything.
Yeah.
She got lucky FEMA declared it a disaster, and she's able to apply for all of the FEMA financial assistance and everything.
Yeah.
But we need to ensure people who are renting understand the importance of renter's insurance and how cheap it really is to cover so much.
It is. I can't tell you how many times I talked to someone when I was working in that industry. They say, oh, well, my stuff isn't worth that much. Oh, because it was all hand-me-downs. Well, don't think of the value. Don't look at your house and think of the value of the stuff you've accumulated over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Think of it from a standpoint, okay, if something happened, a fire,
If I lose it all,
hurricane,
what's it going to cost to replace?
you're not going to be able to take 5 years or 10 years to accumulate. You're going to need a new couch. You're going to need new clothes. You're going to need makeup. So a renter's policy is awesome to cover that personal stuff. Plus, a renter's policy also provides liability insurance. And liability is so important, especially today, because we're sued for anything. So if you are walking down the road and something you do hurts someone else, you could be held liable. Your liability insurance from your homeowner's policy follows you wherever you go. For instance, I know it's South Georgia here.
You're just Jacksonville.
Oh,
You're just
right.
Northern Jacks.
So a lot of my friends and family, they're out hunting. And I know a coworker that I used to work with, her husband accidentally shot a family member and killed him on a hunting trip. And their homeowner's policy, he was liable. It was his fault. So his homeowner's policy paid out. So a question, can I buy a renter's insurance policy for my adult daughter? You most certainly can. An insurance agent will take your money for anything. I encourage you to do that. You can take out the renter's insurance policy and have them send you the bill and pay for it. Because a lot of
just make sure they're covered and not you.
Right. And the difference between, some people say, oh, well, my college student is in a dorm. Is she covered under my homeowner's policy? Yes, if she's in a dorm. If you've rented her an apartment with a group of other college students, she is not covered under your homeowner's policy. She needs her own renter's policy. So it is very important, if you don't own your home and you're renting, is to have a renter's policy for that. And so that just kind of gives us a great topic to talk about more. Angie B did flash the auto owner's website that allows you to go and find an independent agency. And I guarantee if I pull up auto owners today, there'll be a dozen in Jacksonville area. That would be my first. I've worked with auto owners for a lot of years, working at independent agencies, and they by far have the best, fastest claim service. Not that you're going to ever need it, but you never know. So auto owners is something I would check out.
And I just wanted to get that information because, again, I've got family, friends throughout Florida, all the way down to Miami, that might be looking for homeowners insurance on a new home now because their policy was cut off because we live in Florida, or
Yes.
they've lost a lot and didn't know about renter's insurance, like my mother. So
Yes.
trying to get as much information so that way when I share this video, everyone can get their information.
Good. And anyone is welcome to text or call me, and I'll help guide them. I do have a local friend who can write in Florida, but I'd really encourage someone to go to a local agent there. And I'll be glad to steer anybody to a local reputable. And if they're signed up with auto owners, you can almost guarantee they're a reputable agency.
Perfect.
I appreciate you joining me, Swan. And I guess Atlas maybe is tired from the interview and taking a nap.
He's staring out the window waiting for me to let him out the door because there's birds on the roof next door and he must chase them off their roof.
Good deal. Well, very good. Well, thank you for joining me, and thanks for those who are watching, and I will see you next week.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Swan.